And this is your personal work about the just the intelligence and behavior of the elite enemies in the game.
Oh, yeah.
There's just a lot of little shooter core skill changes to how they behave that
Yeah,
should
that's
make the
true.
game a lot more fun and maintain challenge while reducing their health.
Yeah, that was definitely fun to do as well. I mean, like being able to try to ratchet up the challenge a bit. You know, have the enemies flank a bit more, move to cover, stick to cover, kind of suppress some of the kind of. We put some like intentionally dumb behaviors in. For example, with the rioters, they kind of wander out. They're like, oh, I don't know how to use
because they were the first guys you encounter in the game, so they should be
because
easier.
they were kind of the early game faction and stuff like that.
So this actually caught me off guard to hear that there have been some AI improvements in the combat. There's going to be more flanking, more suppression, and the enemies should have different characteristics. This is something that I think a lot of us have been talking about on this channel since June, maybe even before June, is that the AI has seemed a bit wonky and not very good, especially when you talk about a cover-based shooter. Are they taking cover? Are they doing what they need to do to make the game more challenging on the shooter front, not necessarily the bullet spongy front? They had that covered. But to hear that there have been some AI changes is a really good thing, and I am extremely, extremely happy to hear that. And I am definitely looking forward to seeing how great of a challenge the AI poses with this new update. If it's more of the same and not really noticeable, I don't think that that's a good look. But if it's a really good overhaul and we do see some serious changes in the AI's performance, I think a lot of people will be happy about that. I love to see them actually do more maneuvers instead of just throwing grenades and shooting people to suppress them. If they start to do things like that, I think it will be a really good addition and make the game a lot more fun and challenging at the same time.
But the biggest surprise, I think the biggest surprise, I got to be honest, and this is touching the country, was the amount of engagement, especially week 2, week 3, around loot and difficulty and all of that. It just showed me how much people still care and how much people were invested in helping us doing this patch.
Yeah.
Just seeing that roil on the internet.
Yeah, the conversation has really changed,
Yeah.
which has been really cool. And not in a way where we've like artificially changed the conversation and like duped you guys. That's the cool part about this. We've done the opposite. We've shown you 100% what's going on. And you guys have been really constructive and involved. And I guess I want to thank everyone for being part of what I'm sure is going to be a really, really cool update coming out on Tuesday.
To kind of piggyback off what you're saying, like how supportive everyone was like through the PTS process, because I mean it was new for us.
Yeah.
Right? And it was new to a lot of people as well. And so just having people like just go with the flow and try out new changes, like we swung damage a little bit too far back and then we swung it back up, and just having people like be able to say, yeah, this is a public test server. Things are going to change. I can deal with that.
And people didn't give up and just go, I'll wait for it.
Yeah, exactly.
They just stuck in there, play the
content. That to me was really surprising. I mean, that showed like
thank you.
diligence and passion, and like it was really cool.
I mean,
So this part of the state of the game is where I got a little bit, I don't know. I don't really think, I mean, I guess from a developer standpoint, they wanted to talk about this to kind of show that they were grateful to the community for what they did. But personally, I think quite a few of their word choices weren't really the best. I'll look at my notes here really quickly. They just said that they were surprised at how much people still cared. People are invested in the game, and I think there are a lot of people who really do love the game. If you're watching this video, you're probably one of those people who really genuinely are interested in playing the game, and you've been a diehard fan of the game through ups and downs, good and bad. But to say that they're surprised that people still care, maybe it was just a poor word choice, but it seemed a bit strange to say that. One other thing that they said was they were surprised at how supportive the community's been, and that people didn't give up. Particularly, they said people didn't give up. When playing the PTS, people could have easily just said, to hell with this, I'll wait until 1.4. Fair enough. But to be surprised that people stuck with the game to try to make it better and help it out, I'm not really sure. I don't know. I'm not really sure I like how that kind of comes across. It's, the game is what it is, and people have accepted it, and they do want to see the game get better because they enjoy it. To be surprised that people are willing to help and try to do what they can to make the game better seems a bit of a stretch. I think that the devs should give the community a bit more credit and just genuinely say thank you. Don't be surprised that people want your game to be better. Say thank you and try to reward them in some kind of way. What's wrong with that? That's really all that the community has wanted. They've wanted a solid game. They've wanted to feel like they were part of a real community and not just giving tons of suggestions that fly over the heads of the devs, but they really want to be part of something and help the game get better, because we all know games are not easy to make and they don't always start out perfectly. Lots of games start off with a rocky beginning, and over time, with the help of the community, they get better. So it's kind of not necessarily a no-brainer, but it should be expected that the diehard fans who have continually watched the live streams, continually been on the forums, and continually done their best to give suggestions, that those people wouldn't give up. And I think the devs should give the community a bit more credit and just say thank you. I mean, I said that twice, but yeah, just say thank you, be grateful, maybe throw out some skins for those people who played the PTS, and I don't know, just do something nice.
Someone was asking, and this has been a big thing, obviously, Xbox lag. There's some things to clarify there. There are some client changes that need to come in, well, for everyone, but it affects Xbox a lot. I think a lot of people are confused, like, when I'm freezing, like, is it server lag, is it stuff? It's happening in your client. That's why we haven't been able to address it until this client update. Otherwise, that would have been a server-side priority, but we can't, unfortunately.
Some things have to happen both on client and server,
At the
even
same
if
time.
the server is involved.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
Indeed.
those sorts of performance issues, 1.4 will address those.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
And
A lot of them,
other
yeah.
performance issues, like you should, on PC and PS4 as well.
Right.
So if you're on Xbox and you have some of these lag issues, I'm not sure how severe it is. Those things should be fixed and cleared up in the 1.4 patch. If you have an Xbox One and you are playing on it after the 1.4 patch releases, let me know in the comment section, did the patch help or did it hurt your situation? I'd love to hear about that.
People are also asking, like, add a P90 to the game. Like, obviously, we did say that people did see the secret MG5 happen, which was a complete mistake. Like, that gun never existed, like I said before. Like, it's...
But it sort of confirms that, yeah, there will be new guns at
There's
some
new
point.
guns. Well, but the MG5 was in the E3 build. It was.
Was it?
Yeah. I listened. I was like listening back
Oh,
to the
dear.
podcast. You know how the blind rifle was in that build too.
Yeah.
Right.
The MG5 was also in that build. The MG5 was in there. The M700 was in there. I'm just saying. I don't know what it means.
So, and just to give people an idea, the way it works is a long process to make a gun, and the first thing that happens is that someone makes a model, and we put it into the game to see how it works, and it just is basically a new model version of an old gun, and that might sneak into some builds, but that's the first of a lot of steps to make a functional in-game weapon, and so that's why early versions of things look great and sneak into builds, but they sometimes have a lot of work left on them, and that's what happened with those guns. Like, that's why the MG5 was just broken OP, and the blind rifle was crazy too back then, and that's why you might see some early stuff where you might data mine some stuff. Hi guys. That doesn't mean we're withholding them. That means that we're
Yeah.
working on it and we're not spending time scrubbing it away from the build to avoid data miners. We just basically, we're working on stuff constantly.
Yeah.
But on a serious note, the rebalancing means that we have like a pretty good meta in which to insert new content like guns and stuff like that and new talents, because new talent on a new gun doesn't have to compete with deadly, brutal, fierce.
All right.
Right.
Cool.
Okay, so we can expect to see new weapons, new talents coming in the future. That should kind of be expected. They seem to have done that in most of the major updates, especially when we think that there are 2 more content related updates coming for the DLCs. So, yeah, we should have expected that, and I'm looking forward to see what these new weapon talents and what these new weapons are going to be. I still got my fingers crossed for that 50 cal sniper rifle. I was hoping to see it way back, but yeah, not yet. I still got my fingers crossed. I'm hoping, man. 50 cal. I want to one-shot some people. Boom! I really want to hurt some people with that thing. That would be really nice.
Yes, and that's one of the things. The other thing we didn't get to do, well, you didn't get to do, I didn't, it's not me, but named weapons, I mean, they have been rescaled, but they haven't been redone.
Yeah, and
right?
I can say that that's like one of the things that is one of our big regrets, that we never got to do name weapons, exotic weapons, whatever you want to call them, right? But we will. We will do
that's
it.
something on your on your list of
Yeah,
to-dos?
it's my
All
bucket list for.
Cool.
I can't promise when, but what did happen was some really good threads on our forums and on Reddit about wish lists of what people think those guns should be.
Yeah.
And I can tell
was
you,
good stuff.
I've copied that text. I have it on my desktop. So many of those things were good suggestions.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the sad news is that in the 1.4 patch, the named weapons did not get a serious tweak or a fix to their talents. They got a little bit of a buff in terms of their raw power, as they have gone from the low standard where they started out to probably the 2.29 versions. But the talents and such for the named weapons haven't really received any kind of change, and the weapons themselves haven't really changed much at all either. That's really sad news, but it is good news to hear that people were recommending things on the forum, and that the weapons guy, I don't know, anyway, Frederick, has the list, and he is seriously considering a lot of those things, and he likes a lot of the ideas. That's good to know.
What were some of the things that you would like to look at for the future? Obviously named weapons and those sorts of things. What do you feel like...
I mean, immediately for next patch, I'm going to be looking at gear set and weapon usage and seeing if something is really disliked or really not powerful enough or really too annoying or overpowered, and see what we do with those things. So that's like the boring stuff. But just being able to add something into a functional meta, add new guns or gear or whatever into a meta that works is going to be a pleasure.
To answer your question, another thing I think that, no commitment of course, but I would really like to look at is how we need to evaluate kind of what the hardest content in our game, the most difficult content in our game looks like for our most hardcore players. And see if that matches the experience that they want, right?
Yeah.
I think
Is that
see
a
if
challenge,
there's
right?
enough of it.
Because if there's not, then we need to maybe explore ways moving forward, like of giving those players the toughest challenge that they really want, right?
But appropriate rewards as well, right? Because you don't
Yeah,
want to have that
absolutely.
situation where people are like, well, I'm never going to be that hardcore. I can't get this thing. But how do you make people feel elite and hardcore
Exactly.
without, shutting people like myself, like, the mid-tier players, out from getting those rewards?
Totally,
right?
totally.
So
So it's a big
it's
part of the
really-
equation.
But
But the way the game works now, the new philosophy of being able to get everything, but just at different paces, I really think we have a good setup for doing, really hardcore activities or really casual activities.
Yeah, I think we have a good foundation.
Fits in there.
Yeah.
So the guys are asked about what future things they would like to see put into the game, and their answers were probably some of the worst that they could have said. Strictly, like, I think Frederick didn't really answer the question, because he basically said he hopes to add more weapons and gear sets and kind of balance and change the way that goes. But we already know that's what he's going to do anyway. That's kind of his job. I would have personally liked to hear him say something like, I want to see weapons that have very distinct talents or talents specific to them. But not my game. That's what he said. So he's just going to do what he does and adjust the weapons and make sure that they go the way that they're supposed to. Drew, on the other hand, he basically started talking about more challenging content for the advanced players, which I think is a good thing. But I kind of would have liked to hear him say something more about variety and content. It seems like he might be the guy who's in charge of some of the things like that. I don't know their roles specifically, especially Drew's. I'm sure that Frederick is weapons especially. But yeah, hearing a little bit more about the interaction of the worlds, since he is in charge of the world tier, would have been nice. Not only just the challenge of challenging content. I am not looking down on that. I do want to see some of that, and I kind of really want to hear more about what direction he's planning on going with that. But I still want to hear them start talking more about variety and fun. I remember when they started talking about this 1.4 patch in the PTS, when they came back from that summer vacation, they used the word fun quite a bit. If you go back into their old streams or even in my old videos, you probably will hear them say the word specifically fun quite a bit. Fun hasn't really showed up too much in their talks, and it seems like this whole core mechanics kind of took over, and they're talking about how they want the core mechanics to be better, but I really haven't heard much about the actual core mechanics being changed. Maybe that's just something that PTS people experience right off the bat, but that remains to be seen. But I have heard that guns are going to handle differently, and I am looking forward to that because gunplay should be very, very important in a shooter game. It's kind of sad that that took a back seat to a lot of other things, specifically loot and getting gear and difficulty and all of that stuff. But having good gunplay, I think, is really important, and I'm very, very excited to see how the guns will start to handle and what will become some of the better weapons to have. So that's pretty much it for this week's State of the Game. It wasn't that exciting. There was basically just the beginning intro telling us when the 1.4 patch was coming, and then a lot of them talking about some things that were kind of relevant, but other things that didn't really shock or kind of make people get even more hype about. But it's good that the patch is coming very soon. It is coming out on Tuesday. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully the game will be much better and more improved, and I can start playing with you guys and having some fun together. So we'll see how this all goes. I know a lot of you are still clamoring to hear my version of The Division, what thoughts that I have for changing the game. First, I want to see how this 1.4 plays out, and then from that, I'm going to try to do some tweaking, maybe, depends on how it really pans out, and then try to get some material to talk about it. It is a lot. I don't have it. It's actually over there on my desk, but it's a lot of stuff that I have ideas for, but it's probably not the game that they want. Seems they really want to focus more on loot and builds. My version of the game is slightly different, but it does have a lot to do with builds. Not necessarily loot, but that does play a huge part. So, with all of that being said, I am Khan, TDK, Mr. So Real. Thanks for watching this video. Until the next video, I'm gone.
Con.